Projects based on historical events or studies of society and environment are very interesting projects. They can be very original and they can be quite personal to you. So two examples here are one about a student who was looking at the experiences of her family that migrated to Australia after World War II from Molinara. So this was very interesting because she was able to look into her family, the history, and then also delve into experiences of other similar migrants and find out what it was really like in Australia after World War II. This project is again a very personal one. It's about the student's grandfather, and he really just found out everything about his life. He was a very significant figure in South Australian history. And then a project which is a very successful style of project is one looking at films based on historical events and seeing whether they are accurate or not. A student also did one looking at the Viking series and seeing whether the representation of religion in that series was accurate or not. Just correcting a spelling error there. So factors to consider with historical and SOSE projects. Often these can be very, very broad. So looking at narrowing your field. So it's very important that you don't choose a question that is enormous. It's highly recommended to talk to experts and history teachers who know about these fields so that you can narrow it down to a question that is both suitable for lots of different research processes but is also not too wide. Many of these historical projects tend to rely a lot on the internet. You need to make sure you're able to use a much wider variety of sources. So there are some links here. The Mortlock Wing in the State Library is excellent for South Australian history, family history, and the Migration Museum, again, really useful for incoming migrants to South Australia and Australia. There's also a specific area in the State Library for family history. Librarians in the State Library will help you with finding archives, articles, records of your family. There's also a specific South Australian history wing, so I've linked that in. The Royal Geographical Society of South Australia, surveying the early settlements is linked to the State Library as well. SA Memory also has got little gateways into the past, gives you an idea of what it was like in South Australia in 1920 or 1940 or the early settlements, what the culture was like. And then on a broader scale, there's also the National Archives Library. So these links are particularly useful for Australian and South Australian history. But again, highly recommended to use your experts and contacts. Do not be afraid to email or ring as many people as possible. You're bound to get someone who would like to share their knowledge.